Wake the kids and phone the neighbors. It is time for Hustle is the Hack podcast. That is right. It is the Hustle is the Hack podcast. The time where we get to learn about stuff, which is always exciting. Always exciting. Love to learn. Welcome to Hustle is the Hack podcast. I am Pierre Hulsebus. During this podcast, we're going to help you get your customer game on, your selling game. I'm going to help you identify, acquire, and retain the most valuable business asset you can have today. What is that? What is that, you may be asking? Well, it is a customer. That's right. Customers. Without them, nothing is going to happen. You just have a club of grumpy people. That's not a fun business to be in, right? No, nothing. Nothing happens until somebody sells something, and it all starts with customers. And sadly, it comes to an end when you don't have any more customers. So whoever dies with the most customers wins. That's right. How do I do this? Well, I take the latest innovation in business and take proven methods and models and to add a pinch of my 30 years of technology sales experience and put that all together in my patent pending Pierre stack of stuff. That's right. You can read my blog. You can hang out with me on my podcast. You can even kind of see me on my burgeoning YouTube channel. That's right. My name is Pierre Hulsebus. Welcome to Hustle is the Hack. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsor. Hey guys, I'm always getting asked about my podcast and how do you get to make it, and what tools are you using to get online and get your ideas out there? Well, let me tell you, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's by far the easiest way to make a podcast today. Everything you need is all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And then hosting, which is kind of actually technically relatively complicated. They do all of that stuff and distribute all that stuff. Guess what? For free. They do all of that. It's Spotify. You'll see your podcast show up on Apple, on Stitcher, all these great platforms. Everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, did I mention that it's free? So here's how you do it. You go to the Anchor app. Go to the App Store. Just put in Anchor. Or you can go to the anchor.fm and you can get started right away. Thanks to our sponsor, Anchor. All right, we are back. Thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor is Anchor. That's how this all began, actually. The Anchor podcast system is really fantastic. If you have not, if you're thinking of a podcast, man, that's the place to go. It's really, really good. They make it about as easy as you can get it. Holy cow. I've been very, very pleased with that. Well, welcome to the Sales Cafe. First, we're going to sit back here and we're going to talk about customers today. Customer service. We talk a lot about selling. Selling is important. You got to sell, and you got to, that's the part of acquiring customers is sales. That's an important part. Identifying customers, that's kind of your marketing effort. And retention, really about customers, and we've talked about this in the past, is one of the really secret weapons that it comes to being a profitable business. It's one thing to have a high growth business in terms of customer acquisitions, and you go through different phases and different times and season in your business where you kind of move your, let's say, investments and you focus more or less on different parts of the business. Sometimes it's all about acquiring new customers. And so, really you push the gas on sales and different times you do that. Other times you really need to focus on retention and keeping your customers happy. and finding out maybe why they're leaving or just taking care of them. Part of our product often is the service experience that customers have. And many customers actually, that is the reason why they come back, is the service experience that they get. If you ever visited someplace like Disneyland or a really high quality hotel, fancy kind of hotels, that's kind of the service that they're trying to give you, that kind of world-class service. And that's the idea, to retain you and have you talk about, how awesome that experience was. Walt Disney knew this really, really well. He was very good at this component, actually, in his early on when the Disneyland place was built. They wanted to make a souvenir book. And so, the different souvenir books that people, made internally and kind of pitched to him, he was like, these are cheap. And they're like, well, yeah, but you gave us a certain price point. It can't be more than $3 or something like that. And he was like, I don't care if we lose money on these. And they actually lost money on those, but because every person that went home would put that book on their, kind of coffee table, and it would become an opportunity for them not only to remember the awesome trip that they had, but to basically sell the trip to their friends to say, man, you guys should take your family. It was a great experience, and we had such an awesome experience. And so sometimes customer service and kind of, exuding a great customer experience is really the reason why some customers want to be, part of they want to be customers. They want to be customers because they were treated so well. I can attest to this. I am a frequent business traveler, and I'm a unabashed Delta fan. And I will tell you, after traveling to different places, and for me, I know the people at the gate here in Grand Rapids where I leave. They offer a great service, and they're very nice to me. And, they've bent over backwards on several occasions to take care of a lost bag situation or because I'm at the kind of the tail end of, not in a hub. And so often if your bag gets lost, it's not going to come back till the next day. And I have those folks call me up or, deliver my bag right to my home. So it's really, it's one of these things where you have loyalty to an account or to a company often because of the experience that you get. And so I don't want to be too centered around my personal biases here, because not everybody wants to have a great customer experience. And so we just need to tune the customer experience to whatever the customers are willing to pay for. And, sometimes there's a cost and you have to raise your cost to have better customer service. And so you have to find that balance there. And that's what it's often all about. But, twas it me, I would always be, wanting to err on the side of better service than less service. And we certainly all know and have interacted with companies, and you'll see, I'm going to talk about the kind of the customer service crimes here. And so if you're in the customer service business, we're going to first talk about some of the skills you personally could work on to have a better approach to customers and creating a great customer experience. We'll later on in the next week, I'd like to talk about maybe some of the management things that the management organization can do. Typically it's a 1, 2, 3 kind of model for customer service, or building a great customer service model. At the heart of customer service is always the frontline customer service folks. That is number one that's kind of your number one piece. Whether you have fancy technology or don't have fancy technology, somebody answering and taking care of a customer is a personal kind of situation often. And because it is centered around a customer and their personal experience, often that begins with a person representing you as a company. So that's the customer service professional or the customer care person. It could be in your store, the cashier or the salesperson or just one of the clerks, if you will. The store employees, they're frontline customer service people handling returns and taking care of customer needs inside of that. So I don't want us always to think about call center employees as being customer service professionals. Customer service professionals are across a wide variety of people. In fact, some places, everybody is a customer service professional. I believe that to be true. I believe two things. One is if you're working in a company and you don't talk to customers, you probably need to look for another job. Like every person, and whether you're in payables or receivables, management, ownership, whomever you are, you better have some connection to customers in your company. And because, again, at the beginning and the end of every day, and it's all about customers. When I worked for AT&T, that was a rule. Every manager had to sponsor 3 customers. They had to have direct relationships with 3 customers as executive sponsors or something on that order. And that was up and down the line. So, the CIO, the Chief Technology Officer, had to have customer relations. And so everybody, and I believe it's the old, we all have experienced this when you walk into the store and you're looking for, the bars of soap that you need, and you see the first clerk with the name badge on and you say, where's the bars of soap in the store? I can't find them. And then they say, well, that's not my department. And so that's the basic problem here is that every person needs to own that customer relationship. And anytime an employee, and I won't say employee, but a store associate or an associate kind of has that attitude, then we've got a problem. That's the problem we're trying to avoid. Because what does the customer feel? They feel like, well, of course, I'm the customer. This is your department. I don't know the department structure. I don't know anything about you, how you're organized here. I just see you represent the store and I need something from the store. I need some help. And so giving, here's another option. Well, we'll talk about that later, but another thing to consider is often the lowest paid employee in the store can have the biggest impact on those customers, that customer impression or that customer experience. So as a management professional, if you're owning the company, you're setting that example. You're helping your staff figure out how to treat customers. So I always say, never ever allow that to happen. If you basically own the customer. If you're the first person to contact that customer, you kind of own it till it's handed off properly or resolved. But we'll talk a little more about some of those skill sets later. So like I mentioned, there's kind of 3 tiers if you think of customer service. First is that frontline, customer service person, the first person interacting. The second one is the management structure behind that. Like, what is the support, the training, what is the policies and procedures? How are you supporting your frontline folks that are supporting your customers? How are you empowering them to make decisions? Are you second guessing them when they make poor decisions? How are you supporting and helping create a culture there of kind of learning and growing and getting better? This is almost a never-ending thing as we kind of lean into do better with customers. And I would say the third component is the technical stuff. The technical components. Now today, there's so many different strategies around how we manage customer experience and customer service. And so a lot of that is technologies. There's such a draw to reduce costs because a lot of companies feel, the customer service is a cost and expense, and they don't look at it like a positive thing. They look at it, it's really costing us a lot of money to take care of these customers. It's like, okay, it's kind of, that might not be the right attitude, but that is, for some companies, they want to reduce the costs. That's the big driver for a lot of what they do. And that's why we see companies, outsourcing their call centers and sending their call center stuff out there. in many ways, we're trying to personalize a customer experience. That's the other part of technology, is trying to really let a customer pick what the best way they want to interact with you is, if that's online, if that's through email, if that's, through chat or whatever. And the technologies that support all of that is pretty amazing. That's happening now. And just like any technology, though, anytime if it doesn't help the customer, it's really taking away from your business value, quite frankly. And so every investment you make in the technology has to improve the customer's experience and satisfaction and happiness. And if it's not doing that, it's actually hurting your business and lowering the value of your business. When you look at many businesses, the value of the company is literally based on the value of their customer base. It's not based on, like Amazon, for example, a really good example. It's not their inventory. They don't own their inventory. They do have investments in IT, but let's say tomorrow somebody came along, let's say Walmart came along and made a better Amazon experience than Amazon did. Well, then all those customers would move over to another, platform and start, being customers with somebody else. This happens all the time. We talked about this in the past, customer churn. So it's not like you're operating in a vacuum. So the value of Amazon is so tied to customers and how many customers they have. And retaining those customers becomes, job number one. And so it's not about necessarily getting new customers. It's about keeping the ones you have. And so customer service is one of those areas where this is so correct, right? This is such a part of the whole thing. And if it's not happening, if it's not going well, then you're in trouble. You've got some challenges. All right. Anyway, so let's keep moving on here. We want to let's talk a little quickly about these tips that I've got for that customer service professional. And then we'll go into these other areas that I mentioned over the next few podcasts. But this is the first one that we wanted to talk about because everybody that's involved in customer service, these are like core principles that you'll want to be able to do. And so everybody needs to practice these. These are very straightforward. So the first one is active listening. Behind every customer, a service call is actually a real person who has a question. So even though, let's say you're deploying a bot, the customer is not a bot. The customer is a real person, and they have questions or concerns that need to be answered. And that persons needs to feel understood and heard and served. So think about that. Like when I walk into a place, we can always, this is the one thing that we could all do really well at understanding. We can really empathize with the customer because we're all customers, and we all have customer experience every day, whether we're going to a gas station, to our bank. We all know what being understood or heard or served means. And this is what a customer wants at the core. They want to feel first understood. I got what your problem is. I understand your problem. And so active listening is really this skill set that you can develop with coworkers and family. And first of them is to pay attention to that person. And one of the things that is in a call center situation, if you're talking to a customer over a call, or you're looking them in the face, is literally looking at them. That's it. It's if they're coming into the store or into my place of business, it is literally making face and eye contact and listening, actively paying attention to what they're saying. And that is number one right there. That is making a personal connection, person to person, that allows us to let that person feel like they're being heard. That means not having a phone in front of us or a computer next to us and, making eye contact with them intermittently and having our eyes dart around. It's literally just looking at them nicely in the face with a pleasant smile and demeanor. It's not staring them down or anything like that, but it's just that sense that you're listening to them the way that, you're listening to your grandma. Your grandma has something interesting to tell you about something that's a problem with her. And so you're going to listen to her. You're going to look at her, and you're going to, use your facial expressions too. And it's just going to come natural. And so the first part of that is letting people feel that they're understood. And so active listening is a part of that. After they finish speaking, what you can do is make that clarifying question to make sure you understand exactly what they're saying. So that is saying something very simply. So if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is this and that. And then you repeat literally what you heard them say. Maybe recharacterize that and even put emotion. And so that makes you really not happy, right? And so you say, okay, I see that you're returning this item. I'm really sorry it didn't. So what you told me is this is the wrong size. Is that correct? Letting them, or, this invoice is $50 more. You weren't expecting this charge because the salesperson told you it was this and that. Like, you're just retelling this. And I've talked about this in the past. It is the McDonald's drive-through model of communication. It literally is just repeating literally the literal thing that you just heard. And, McDonald's and all of the ordering that goes in from the car, it's you're over here. There's a kid in the background. There's crying children in the background. They're crying, and there's one of your kids is back there screaming, and the other kids are in the background talking, and then there's. So this is the car, and you're driving up, and you're saying, "I'd like 2 hamburgers with fries and this and that." And nobody can hear what you're saying when you're in the background with all of that noise. And so sometimes there's miscommunication that happens right away. And how you approach that miscommunication and discussion is really, really important. Those are the kind of things that are subtle. And it takes a little bit of skill to develop. But what you're trying to do is just let them know, one, you're not agreeing with them. You're not taking a defensive, like, oh, well, we always do that, or that's our policy. You're not there yet. You're just like, you're at the, what is up? Like, just what is happening? Just let me understand what is happening. You're not taking any action. You're not committing to anything. It's literally just human kindness that you're having is what all that is. And, finish the conversation with a summary to ensure that you're on the same page. If you're doing customer service over the internet and there's a long dialogue that goes back and forth, often folks will do a summary of this conversation. They will bullet point this. And then from there, you can have an agreement because that's what's happening. So you're basically finishing with a summary. So what I understand is the sales department said this was going to be discounted 47%. This is only discounted 13%. And that is not to your satisfaction. Is that correct? That is kind of what we're doing. We're summarizing this. And it's without bias. It's just literally saying to that person, I felt heard. And there's a relief that they have personally will get that, okay, somebody heard me. This is correct. And they had an opportunity to kind of vent their grievance. And so this is important. If people are angry or upset or whatever, you are literally just, catching that the first time from them. And that kind of release allows them to feel a certain sense of relief. And so that's a positive feeling, actually. So yes, you may not feel like, they're right or what they're asking for is reasonable or unreasonable. Those are other things to happen later. You're going to figure that stuff out later. But the first thing is to practice that active listening. We'll talk about bringing resolution to that So that's number two. That's what I'm talking about, is learning to empathize with the customer. So empathy is really important. We talk about this as a salesperson. This is the most important thing that you can do, or one of the most important things that you can do, is to empathize with customers. And so as a customer care person, same thing. That was the experience they had in selling and buying the product. Now we're going to carry that through. We're going to emphasize that we're going to empathize. So we're going to emphasize empathy. And empathy is that ability, again, to understand how the customer actually feels, right? So empathy is not necessarily an acknowledgement of their truth, if you will. Let's say objective truth, if you will. Like I mentioned, that's not my department, or it's not saying, well, that's our policy right away. No. That's not doing any of that. You're not adding your color or like coming down and making a decision right now. You're not the judge yet. That's going to come later. Again, we're helping the person go through this little bit of a cathartic process of unloading on you, and you want to say, I hear you. And so learning to empathize with the customer is letting know that they're feeling and where they're coming from. While some people seem like they're born with this trait, it's really just a skill. If you really want to get into this, actually, empathy is really an interesting area of study. A lot of business study has been done. Bré Brown has done some amazing studies. I'll put it on the stack and the link on the podcast notes. You can see Bré Brown's stuff on empathy, and she studied this. Actually, it's a lot of very clinical studies that have been done about empathy and what happens. We have studies that have been done by Malcolm Gladwell about how suable a doctor is, and how and then somebody did a study in terms of how much the doctor spent time with the patient, and then how often they were sued. And the more time that somebody would spend in their in the appointment with the patient, the less likely they were to be sued. And so it's really interesting when you think about what's happening in that extra time. It is you're adding that extra color of empathy, typically, is what was happening in those. And so it lowers your risk. And so some people are born with it. This is a skill, and there's a lot of things you can do to do this. And maybe we should just spend some time in the podcast later just talking about empathy. But you want to basically try to imagine how it makes them feel. And so that's, at the end of the day, that's it. That's just acknowledging their feeling. That is, again, this is a personal thing. This is somebody's got they've taken time out of their day to drive over here. They've got 15 other things to do, and they're coming into the store and they're making a complaint, and they're gonna do something. They need some satisfaction in that, and so they've been thinking about this for some time, and it's connecting to them. And so, they got other things to do. This is the last thing on their list that they want to do, is return something or complain to the store. They've got other more important things to do. And so this is why acknowledging their effort and their energy is important. And so you just want to see the problem through their eyes and imagine how it makes them feel. I always just try to think about it. This is my grandma returning something. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do, or a friend or somebody in my family. Maybe your family isn't so nice, and so maybe that's not the person you want to think about. But if you don't know that person, obviously, you may not know them personally, so you're not trying to be fake at all. But anyways, this is a skill. Customers will be more receptive when they feel understood by you, and it's a way to de-escalate and create a more better, enjoyable interaction with the company. So just try to see the problem through their eyes. Imagine how it makes them feel. Customers are much more receptive if they feel heard. Okay, number 3 on the list. What is number 3? What is number 3? Number 3 on the list is, what is it? It is this: using positive language. That's right. So when you're attending to customer problems, using positive language takes away the stress from the situation. Words, they mean things, and they can create a trusting relationship with your customer. So verbs that can be used positively, for example, instead of saying, don't hit the red button, say the green button is the best option. It's just rephrasing. Using future tense is also a positive. It doesn't dwell on their past issues. So phrases like, great question, I'll find that out for you, or I'd love to understand more about that, keeps the customer in the present moment. So just using positive verbs and being positive and memorable and stay calm, even if they're angry, those are the kind of things to think about using positive language. And so starting out to say, it's not my department, or we don't do that, can be easily turned around and saying, let me find somebody that can help you, or, let's consider this from a different position, or something on this order. You're thinking through the positive ways to help the customer understand the problem or situation, right? So let me help you. Let's go find that helps put things in the present, as opposed to helping the customer kind of get out of what happened, more like what are we going to do. And so that's the kind of the tense, and changing the verb tense to present and future as opposed to the past. When you think about somebody when they first come in, well, this happened and they did this and this, they're telling you what happened in the past. And now you're trying to go, this is what we're doing now going forward. I understand you. I think I understand your problem because I'm telling you that. I'm empathizing with you. And now I'm going to take it a positive action to move things forward of what we're going to do today, right now, to help you move forward. And so that's kind of that cathartic process of the journey of loss and gain that people go through. This is, I was saying, there's a little psychology here that's going on when people have when they injure themselves, they think of the pain of the past, and now, you get them through therapy, and the therapist is helping them envision change and how they're going to, be rehabilitated and get back to work or get back to, normalcy. And so you're in that process. You're now the therapist helping them get to normalcy. So the problem is the problem. And now we're going to we're going to do something now. I can't necessarily fix the problem. Or I might not be able to make that bad thing go away because it happened, but I am able to do some things that will help us move forward. So yeah, that's using that positive language. Improving those technical skills. So customers come with all different kinds of problems, and you want to answer their questions fast. But if you don't know how to properly, implement that that stuff inside of the systems, you're going to be wasting valuable time. And so nothing makes folks more angry when you say something like, well, the computers are really slow today, or you get put on hold. So the technical skills that you need to, bring resolution is really important. So you need to master the technology of whatever you're going to be using to help resolve the problem. They become really frustrated because it's more like, okay, well, this is what I expected. Yeah, you guys don't care about this stuff. And so the longer so if you're not able to enter the ticket in or able to find the receipt or whatever, you're going to be wasting their valuable time. And so before interacting with that customer, you should fully understand how to use your systems and your technical systems and your ticketing systems, and basically learn to type faster. But understand that when you're on an on-stage event with a customer, and they're experiencing frustration, the longer you make them wait, the worse it gets. There is a curve of frustration that is exponential, and the longer you wait, the worse it gets. And so, if you need to ask for help, do it right away. If you don't know how to resolve this, get somebody to help you right away. So the speed, time is of the essence because their time is of value. And so having that skill set is really helpful. So know your products and services that you sell. So this is another, customer service professionals should have a deep knowledge of the products that they work with, the way they work, how they work, what they're doing. I'm a big advocate for this is why often outsourcing customer service seems initially like a smart idea, but in the long run, it's often a really bad idea from a customer standpoint. If you have a highly technical or complicated product that you're supporting and you folks need help, those offshore folks don't know the product and you're just relying on some sort of documentation, good luck with that. It's recommended that each customer service spends time in onboarding with seasoned product specialists. They can ask questions and fully understand the ins and outs of the product. That way you'll be able to help customers when, they're troubleshooting the issues, and you'll know the product tips and tricks and be able to make that work a lot easier. I recently had to switch one of my phones over from Google Fi to AT&T. For my spouse, my wife, Blanca, she was, we have Google Fi. I've used Google Fi for many years. She has Apple phones though, and Apple phones don't play nice often with Google Fi. And so during the summer, we're in a spot up in North Michigan where there's really cruddy service. And so, we needed to move her over to AT&T. So we needed to port her number over to AT&T. So from Google Fi to AT&T. So the AT&T person, God bless that woman, she stuck with it, but she didn't know how to do this. It just took forever and several hours actually for this to happen. It was because they didn't know the product very well. They didn't know the Google product. And so the porting the number over went wrong. And I've actually complained about this because they double billed me during that process. And then I had a call back up. I had to make the call to tell them that they double billed me, and they still never gave me the right credit. So this is one of the reasons I didn't know. I don't like AT&T. But anyways, so know your product and service. And at the end of the day, it is number 6 on this list. Be human. Live chat, email, telephone communications can seem impersonal because they are. You can't read another person's facial expression and body language. Customers want to feel connected, and so look for common ground to make a quick connection. So live chat and all that stuff are great. They kind of reduce costs. They can often help improve the speed of communication. And customers sometimes would rather work with a chat bot on a website to ask quick questions, right? So that is customer service. But when things get escalated, make sure you got somebody, that actual human that can be spoken to. And, again, companies that are able to do this are able to do a really good job at it, usually show that they can retain customers better. And so this is that balance in cost and service. And, just looking at it like an expense and a way to reduce expenses by going, hey, we're going to have a big, basically paywall between the customers and our people by making everybody go through the website and a chat bot and then escalate. Some folks find that super frustrating and they're not able to get answers right away. And so this is important to be human, or allow folks to have that human kind of touch. And, again, that's going to take different forms in different businesses, but that is what it is. People want to talk to people. And if your ROI is all about deferring and deflecting and not about caring, you're probably in the wrong business. You're probably going to be taken out of business by your competitors who do a better job in this. Because, the thing is, and I will just say this, the ROI of this type of stuff is very short term. I work in this business. when an ROI is calculated often and the term is deflection. So we use technology often to deflect somebody interacting with a real person, because that real person you have to pay a wage for, and there's insurance and children that have to be paid for. You have to put kids in college and stuff like that. So that's a very expensive and precious resource. And then we find, they're answering questions repeatedly that could easily be answered maybe by a different piece of technology. And so, there is this ability sometimes to deflect through a website, through knowledge-based articles, through a chatbot, the person's having to take the time of a live agent. So that is true. That is true. But if my sole KPI in that is how many questions did I defer from a live agent, and that calculates by ROI, well, what it doesn't actually calculate is after that chat bot, answered the question, did the customer stay a customer? What was the impact of that? Because the chat bot may have given that person the wrong answer, or they may got so freaking frustrated with the chat bot that they just ended the session. And you count that as, that person deflected a call from a live agent when they're just right now planning on how to drop your service. And so you're thinking, hey, this is a great ROI. Look, we just deflected all these calls, when in fact you're just pissing your customers off and they're going and finding other places. And so often most organizations don't have enough metrics in their system to have the full picture of the customer's experience. They just look at that. The chatbot deflected 47 calls today, and so we took 47 less calls. Look at all the money we're saving. 47 less calls. That's $400 we save because it's $10 a call that we pay to the call center. Look at all the money that we're saving. And then you find out that the chatbot and the knowledge base sucked, and the person was so pissed that they went to another carrier or another company, and your KPI doesn't take that into account. It just looks at the one number. And so you have to, if you're going to use numbers, you have to use all the numbers. And so retention is so super important here. So I'm just saying, be human. That is a number, or a core belief of mine. Obviously, is that when we're doing empathy, we're trying to be empathetic. That means being human. And chatbots and all that are not able to really be human yet. They can give very specific answers to very specific questions. Great. They can give us access to printed knowledge-based articles, but they are not human people. At least not yet. We haven't been completely, the bots can't completely replace people yet. Anyways, number 7 on the list. What is number 7? Number 7 is communicate clearly. The ability to clearly communicate both verbally and in writing is essential to excellent customer service, especially if you're speaking to somebody who has a different native language. Answers to your questions should be clear, concise, and in your natural tone of voice. All right. So this is one of the biggest challenges today, is because we have such a diverse environment that we're working in. We have people from all over the world in our companies. We have folks with different languages and different experiences and languages and different accents. And so at the heart of this, it's, what do we want to do? We want to clearly communicate verbally and in writing. So you have to kind of come up with a common, most companies are English based. At least if you're listening to this podcast, it's not multilingual. But let's say your company is in, we're doing customer service in Arabic. Well, then you better have really good Arabic speakers, and the folks taking care of your customers at the front line should be really good at that. And that should be a skill that they learn, and that they should be good at that. And so it's the same thing. If you're servicing companies in America and you have a very strong foreign accent, Americans are going to have a hard time understanding that sometimes. A lot of people don't work in that diverse environment. So they are not familiar with working with folks that have different accents, and have a hard time understanding somebody that has a strong foreign accent, and it becomes a barrier to good customer service. And so customers want an explanation. They don't want to know, all those details sometimes. When it comes to, all the specifics, so to speak, of what's the next thing that has to happen. They just want to ask, if they ask for more details, you can share that. But most people want their issues resolved quickly. And always in each conversation, is there anything else we can do for you today as you work through this? Again, these are clear communication points. You're basically asking customers closed-ended questions. That's very simple way. So the more details that you get in these, more options, more decision tree components, the more complicated it is for the customer to kind of work their way through their problem using your decision tree. So if you're not familiar, if you're kind of working on just building something out from a customer service standpoint, a lot of organizations will build out what we refer to as a decision tree. And that decision tree is that map of the customer journey that says, if this happens, then they go to this department, or they have this problem. This is the reaction or answer that we have for them. So it's like a little, find your own adventure path that somebody takes. And so what that allows you to do is simplify the choices and the choice gates people have. Now, that is helpful at times. Obviously, you need people that can, bend the rules and go beyond that and take care of customers and all of that stuff. But that becomes a framework or a guide for folks. So it allows you to basically ask very simple questions. So at the end of, let's say, an activation service, is there anything else I can do for you today? And so they might have another question about billing, or they might have another question or something like that. And so at the end of, decision tree number 1, there's now 3 different options that they most likely will be asking. Is there anything else we can do for you? I need to activate another line, or I need to, return something else. Like, you need to be able to continue that conversation. And so it is a linear discussion. It is not, you're not working on 3 things simultaneously. It is a single linear discussion. And that allows people to communicate clearly in yes and no answers. And let's say if you're having a challenge as a customer service professional, getting people to understand you, this is one of the best techniques to use, is asking very close-ended questions and making sure that you're understood in those close-ended questions. So, clearly communicate the whole time. One of the things that I like in the call center stuff right now that I love, actually, probably my favorite feature that's come out in the last couple of years is, hey, we're going to keep your number in the queue. Can we call you back when you're good to go? And so I always accept that option. It's really good. I use it in, like I say, I'm a Delta person. And so I had this recently. There was a big snafu with Delta a couple months ago that we had. And it was a Saturday or Sunday night we were traveling, which is a super busy business travel night. And we were going to miss one of our flights, and there was a mess up on the tickets. And so I had to escalate, and I was going to be on hold for about an hour. And because I'm in like the premium queue or whatever. And, so it's like, no, you can call me back. So I could easily go grab a cup of coffee. I could go, find some power for my computer. I could orient myself and be ready for that call back. So I always take that call back. I like that. Anyways, so yeah, be clear and concise. Use your natural voice tone. Don't get escalated and really excited or too, overbearing and angry. You want to have that natural tone of voice regardless of maybe your anxiety level or your anger or frustration with the customers. Customers want an explanation. They don't need all the details, but they want an explanation of what's going on. And always, is there anything else I can do for you? And communicate your hold times. All right. Number 8 on the list today is be solution focused. Contact centers and folks that are working on the front line can be emotional. Of course it is. It can be really frustrating because you're dealing with people who are frustrated or angry. I mean, that is the job, right? That is the job. I used to sit next to a gal that was a cubicle mate of mine, and she handled our, so one of the companies I worked for, she handled customer support. So she was the tier 1 support person because she was the smartest person at the company relative to all the technical details of certain versions of our software that we had. And so she, was a small company, and so she was tier 1. She, all day, basically all people called her up was, hey, this database doesn't work, or this transaction isn't clearing, and is there a way, what's the best way to fix this? And so people were, calling her. Of course, this was an accounting software primarily, and shipping, distribution software. So stuff like orders being like locked up or the system not working was affecting that customer's business like very dramatically for the day. People were locked out of their system or whatever. So there was a level of anxiety that people calling in were, they were really, really confused, or the high anxiety. And so, she, this young lady, bless her heart, she would always like, man, our software sucks, and people are always mad. It's like, well, the job you have is no one ever calls and says, hey, so-and-so, the software's running great today. No, all you ever hear are people that are angry and frustrated. There's thousands and thousands of other people that are really happy with what's going on. All you ever hear is problems. And so, yeah, that's part of the environment that you're dealing with, people who are frustrated. And so you, as a customer frontline person, you need to kind of find a Zen state almost. You need to find a mindset that is going to be a little bulletproof to their frustration or anger. So for your sake and for theirs, it can be helpful to adopt an approach that keeps you focused on the big picture and helps you stay resilient and determined to reach good outcomes. And so, yes, we're going to be empathetic. Yes, we're going to say, I understand that you're frustrated. Let's see what we can do to help you out today. We want to make our mission to find a solution to help the customer move from the problem focused mindset to a more positive one, to not the problem, but the solution. Like, we're acknowledging the problem, but now we're going to build a solution. And the approach is even more successful when the customer is in a good frame of mind to begin with. And so part of that is, if you're making them wait online or on hold and they're frustrated when they get to you, well, that's a problem. That's part of the problem. It's not your fault that they're frustrated. They're frustrated already when they walk and start to talk to you. So the more you can do in person to disarm that, like literally the environment that customer service takes place, it can be like one of the things that's really interesting if you go to modern banking, this is kind of a trend in modern banks. A lot of modern banks do not have teller windows anymore. And it's like really disarming if the first time you walk in, one of my banks is like this. They don't have a teller window. The folks are standing there waiting. And so they have like their cash drawer behind them, and it's more like a table and more like a inviting like office, like it's like a cool office that you go to. In Seattle, where I work for Microsoft, and in Seattle there is who is the bank? It is Capital One has a branch bank office there in Seattle. And when you go into it, literally it's like going into a Starbucks. That's the environment that they want to have, because this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to be solution focused, not problem focused. So they want to just kind of create this positive environment where we're here kind of helping you with your banking money challenges. And, we're going to do some fun stuff. We're going to get creative. And so they have literally a creative space to make that happen, as opposed to, coming in, hey, I'm coming in for a loan application and you guys won't give me money. I need money for my, anyways, sometimes the banking environment and some of those environments can be so intimidating to a customer. Literally, they were built for that, to show power and strength. And so that's why they were made of marble. They needed to relay to their customers that they were durable and strong. And so all the banks, kind of came from this world where the bank environment was like brass, and it was shiny and marble, like we're stable, we'll be here forever. We're like a monument. And so, it's not a great customer service environment. They make you queue up in a long line behind people. And so, and you have the option to maybe talk to somebody, won't that be great someday? Anyways, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting. All right. Anyways, so be solution focused. Be solution focused. It's like looking forward, staying resilient. And if you're in management, help your people out with this. Be positive anyways, we're going to talk a little more about that in the next podcast about how managers can help. But I'm going to just say this right here. You want to encourage your folks to be solution focused and understand that they're dealing with frustrated customers often. And so you need to support your people 127%. They're doing yeoman's work here. They are out there catching guff for, mistakes that the company has made. And they're the ones trying to solve these problems. And so let's help them out. Let's create a positive environment for them. Let's create positive incentives and rewards for them when they do great. And I know a lot of you do that already. So, all right. So number 9 on the list. And some people are really great at this. Some people feel like they're crossing. I am like this, quite frankly, sometimes. Because of the legal challenges I have in my job from time to time. When you're a professional, when you're considered a professional, you have liability. And so if you admit mistakes, then, you're exposing yourself to liability. But as a customer service professional, if you've misunderstood the customer's need or made an error or cost them time or failed to do something you say you would do, be transparent. Stuff happens. Everybody makes mistakes, and admitting to them is often the quickest way to resolve the situation positively. And if the mistake is on the part of the business rather than something that you've personally done, you can still take the customer's viewpoints on board and be clear about what you'll do to help them redirect the situation. Be clear that whatever the problem, however it started, wherever it came from, that you're committed to helping them find a solution. So like admit that, okay, that doesn't sound right. Like that sounds horrible. Like I can't believe that our team did that to you. That's not something that we typically would be doing. So, you could admit mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. Companies screw up all the time. We lose luggage. We run over packages, and crush them. And, people make mistakes. Key punch errors are happen. Somebody puts in a quantity of 100 instead of 10 and, they overbill. I mean, this is the stuff that happens. It's okay, to admit that. And when you admit that, actually, for some people, that's all that they want. That's all that they want. I watched a great movie over the week when I was sick last week. And so I spent a lot of time in my room, isolated from my family. And so I watched a lot of movies. One of the movies I watched was Michael Keaton was in a movie. It didn't do really well in the box office. It was called Worth was the name of the movie. And it was about the 9/11 fund that the victims fund for 9/11. And it was for the thousands of people that had, lost family members, and how we were going to, how are we going to, as a country, kind of take care of these folks from a kind of we can't sue all the airlines. All the airlines would go out of business. It's not all their fault that this all happened. And yet there is some liability there. And, so how are we going to do this? Anyways, this fella ran the victims fund. It was their legal practice there. So part of the process was for them to interview different people and families, and to interview folks. And a big part of that entire process, literally, they interviewed everybody that was affected. Every family victim had to have their story told, and they apportioned that fund based on the needs of those families, not just on the liability component or some sort of wage formula. It was really complicated, actually, ultimately, what they came up with. But the important part that I wanted to talk about is, basically being heard and helping people resolve that problem. And so at the end of an interaction, or, when you're getting to that solution, maybe this one should have been higher up, is to admit maybe a mistake was happened. Like, I'm sorry, your soup is cold. Let's get you, a better thing of soup. And, we're not going to charge you for that, of course, So, if the mistake is made, you're just that frontline person dealing with it, and you're bringing resolution. So you're not necessarily admitting you personally screwed up, although that's fine too. If you did personally screw up, if you're the business owner, it is okay to admit you screwed up. That is fine. It lets people kind of get that relief, like, okay, we made a mistake, and that's fine. They're admitting that there was a problem and that this wasn't right and this wasn't fair, and that helps them kind of close that door and go, yep, they heard me, a solution is coming, and I feel better. And that is how we retain. And so that is how you close the door, so to speak, or help a customer close the door on a bad experience. If they have had a bad experience, you basically want to have them walk away with two things. One is, I was heard and I felt like they resolved the problem to my satisfaction. And number two is, I'm just shutting that door. It's closed. It's like having all these windows on your desktop open up. You're basically clicking the Xbox on the top, and it's closing the little X button. It's closing that window. It lets them kind of close that down, and they don't have to worry about that. They can move on with their day. And so it's like giving people closure. So admitting that you had a mistake and, willing to learn is really helpful for your customer, because again, it is about them. It is not about you. It's not about you. This whole situation is not about you trying to save money or reduce cost. It's all about you retaining that customer, because remember, if that customer walks out the door and never walks in your door again, you have to replace them with another customer just to stay even. And so that's money sitting right there in front of you. When that customer leaves and they don't come back, you're screwed. That's bad. You don't want that. And so you need to be willing to learn, and, you need to be willing to learn. Great customer service is no different than any other pursuit. World-class customer service representatives, you must be willing to work on these customer service skills and learn from mistakes. And so we'll talk about that next time on our next podcast, when we go through some of the challenges. You're like, so as a manager, how do I coach and keep track of these things? And how can I learn not only how to do better at customer service, but how can I, move the company forward by, these were problems. So these are issues we need to fix so they don't happen again. So it's not just taking care of customers now. It's like, if we solve some of these problems, we'll defer them to later. We're taking care of customers now in the future. So anyway, all right. With that said, we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back after this really, 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 really important message. And we're back. Hey, welcome back. HustleIsTheHack.com is the website. This is Pierre Hulsebus, your podcast host for today. And I hope you're having an awesome day as we continue our conversation about, success and failure in business and customers and all of that. And so I like to refer to this segment as the Pierre Hulsebus Rhombus of Failure. That's right. The conventional wisdom really is often characterized as a hindrance to creative thinking, because it leads to deeply entrenched ideas that are rarely evaluated for their accuracy. And so it can be super difficult to change that once that stuff gets entrenched. So I love to go reconsider conventional wisdom. It often leads to new innovations, actually. And so it's a little game I like to play, and you can play along too, is Spot the Crappy Conventional Wisdom game. And there is there's an awesome podcast slash guy on LinkedIn that I love to listen to. It's called the Brutal Truth About Selling and Sales podcast, and they have some every day. They post up, kind of one of these conventional wisdom kind of components. And so I love to kind of poke fun at that and kind of, I don't want to say troll because that's kind of considered negative. But I like to kind of look at that and kind of, I'm like always the one that is on there making a comment about here's one, worrying does not take away tomorrow's trouble. It takes away today's peace. And so at a personal level, that is true. That is true. As a Christian, I believe, my future is based on a plan that my Heavenly Father has built for me. And my job is not to know all about that. My job is just to walk every day in the things that I know to be the right thing to do. And so I don't really worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has its own worries. And so I'm not willing, so I get that. That's true at a personal level. But in your business, sometimes these can be counterintuitive. So my idea is that, this is from a business standpoint, not exactly the best advice to take, that you need to be worried. You should be worried. Andy Grove said, only the paranoid survive. If you're not worried about losing or getting beat, you probably shouldn't be leading. This is advice I hope my competitors take. Imagine a battlefield commander with this attitude. You need to worry. You need to have, this is why they have 4 and 5 plans. This is why they have different out strategies. You need to worry. You need to put yourself in and creatively think, what is my enemy going to do? So when I come to a proposal that I know is going to be competitive, or an environment where I know I'm going to be competed against, or a hostile environment where I know I'm going to be challenged, I need to be prepared for that. And so some of that comes with worry. Okay, I need to worry about not looking bad in front of a prospective customer. And so does that take away a little peace for today? Well, I guess if I'm a moron, I can feel like, okay, I'm going to not worry about doing a bad job. So I'm just going to do a bad job and not worry about it. Well, you're not going to have a job very long if you do that. So you do need to worry about doing a bad job. You need to worry about that. And when you have dealt with worrying about that, then you can have the peace and confidence that you're going to do a good job. And so I don't like that conventional wisdom. That is a bad piece of conventional wisdom and falls clearly within the Pierre Holsebus rhombus of failure. And I have another one today that I wanted to mention. Let me pull this one up here. Here's another one. Don't ruin a good day today by thinking about a bad day yesterday. Let it go. Let it go. And so this is what I often think, this is where I just kind of cringe because I want to comment on this so badly. And yet I don't want to be perceived as being a troll, but I'm going to be a troll today. And don't ruin a good day by thinking about a bad day yesterday. Let it go. And so this is how the sales meeting is going to go. When my sales director calls me up and says, Pierre, you had a really crappy demo yesterday. I heard that thing it sucked, and you did very poorly. And let's talk about it. And I'm going to just tell my sales director, just let it go. Just let it go. Let's not ruin a good day by thinking about that bad day. Just let it go. Can you imagine that happening? No, that's not what's going to happen. You're going to get called in the carpet because you did a bad job, and you need not to let it go. You need to take it personally, and you go, all right, I'm personally going to do better. I'm personally going to commit to learning from my mistakes. I'm personally going to figure out how to not make the company look bad in front of a good prospect. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm not going to not let it go. I'm going to let it go later when I figure out how to get back in that fight, And so this is a lot about being reflective. This is not a learning mindset. This is the mindset of somebody who doesn't care enough about their job. And so this is conventional wisdom that sucks. Don't ruin a good day by thinking about a bad day yesterday. Let it go. Now, I will say this. I have good advice for you if you're a salesperson or you go out and do customer visits. Always end the week on a high note. I'd like to do part of my job, my daily work that I do every day is to spend time with partners. And these are folks that take our software and deploy it. And so they always talk about their awesome projects that they're working on. And so I usually try to have those meetings on Fridays. I take those meetings on Fridays. I love to end on a high note, end the week on a high note, because then you're not, then over the weekend, you're not thinking, man, that sucked or that was bad or whatever. You got a good, you can kind of let it go, so to speak. And then we kind of high note thinking, man, we are great. We are the best thing in the world. So I always say, end the week on a call with a good customer, and they will thank you for it. So that is two awesome pieces of conventional wisdom that, if you follow them, will lead you to a shorter let's say career in sales. You need to own it. So this is the other one that's kind of a let's say I don't want to characterize it as a millennial idea, or maybe it's millennial because it is not millennials that have really come up with this, but it's something that's kind of in the air today. Surround yourself with people who push you to do better and be better. That's true. No drama or negativity, just higher goals, higher motivation, good times, and positive energy. No jealousy or hate. Just bring out the absolute best in each other. And I am going to say that is the way that conventional wisdom is accurate. Like, surround yourself with people who push you to do better. Now, what I often hear from folks, and you see on social media a lot, is basically, pick your friends. What we want to do is curate our environment so that we don't have negativity coming at us, because negative things are bad for me. And if I get negative feelings, then I don't have a good, I'm going to feel sad, and I don't want to feel sad. And, but there's some principles that are out there that are universal. We help spurn each other on to good things. And so sometimes I might perceive this as negative because it is negative. Like I was saying, if I'm talking to my boss about a bad job that I did, I'm going to get some negative feedback probably on the performance that I did. If I'm a sales engineer and I'm partnering with the salesperson and my demo sucks, guess what? That salesperson is going to probably give me some negative feedback that you just blew this for us, you ding dong. So this is the kind of stuff, and I don't have the choice of not surrounding myself with people who push me to do better. That person is going to be negative. I just screwed his sale. Maybe, they're going to be pissed. It's not fun all the time. And so what I'm saying, though, here is you want to have at least be a constructive environment. And it is going to be negative from time to time. And you take that negative and you turn it into positive. You need to have that mindset of, I'm learning. I've got a learner's mindset. Even after doing this for 30 cotton picking years, I still screw up. I still need to have that learner's mindset. And when I want to seek the feedback that might be perceived as negative, I don't want all good comments. I want some folks to come back and say, hey, this could be better. You could do this better. And so, you want to surround yourself with folks that can actually give you that negative feedback, that can sharpen you, that can help hone you to be better. And so sometimes if we're so thin-skinned and we just go, well, they're being mean to me. It's like, no, they want you to be better. They want you to do better, and they're pointing out and helping you get some emotion behind being better, not just being complacent and going, well, this is as good as I can do. Like, that's not where you want to be. You want to be in the help me be better at this job. And so help me be better, coach. And so the coach sometimes yells at the guys and the gals. And sometimes they're, using negative reinforcement to go, you screwed up, so go take a lap. I don't like that attitude. You need to fix your attitude. You need to be more learning, and you need to take responsibility for your mistakes. Like, these are the things that, a lot of people don't like to hear. They feel negative when you get them, but they are, if you have a good team, if you have good coaches, you are getting moved forward. So sometimes you need that. That's called accountability, people. Come on, let's move on. All right. That's it. And I'm going to, that is good. That is good. Those are two pieces of in the rhombus of failure you want to keep there. They just challenge that conventional wisdom all the time. When it comes out, you want to challenge it. I'll tell you one thing that I deal with every day that just really grinds my gears is, and this is a little bit of a rant. I'll just say the rant. This is the rant part of my the show. All right. This is the rant part. It is customers and prospects that are always seeking references. And because, you're trying to be creative, and so you're doing something that's never been done before, or you're trying to push people up to do something epic. And there's no case study for that. I work at the very bleeding edge of customer service companies that are trying to build something that nobody has done before. When I came to work at Microsoft, my whole goal here was to do epic work. It was not to just install stuff that worked, was to take some risk and find customers that were willing to do some stuff and change the industries that they're in. And there's no case studies for that. That's pioneering work. You don't find a reference account from a competitor that's already done this, that's been working on it for 5 years, and now you're going, oh, let's adopt that idea. It's like you're too late to the game then. And so I want companies to go figure out, hey, what are we going to do in 5 years? How are we going to get there? What can we do now to get us there in 5 years? That is the type of thing that I'm always people are always looking for references, and it's I just get it's just such a thing. It's just such a thing. And our companies like ours work really hard to do that and build. I love to hear the customer stories of success, of course. But you realize that so much of this work, because I've seen the back end of that work, and was involved in many of those case studies, this is years worth of work. And what they're showing today and what you're seeing as this kind of case study is been in the works for years. And so it's not just buy this software and then it just happens. There's a whole bunch of other things that happen organizationally that went along with that. And you can be leaders or followers. I like to talk to companies and folks that are trying to be leaders and do something that has never been done before. So that's maybe just me, but this is why I like to challenge conventional wisdom, because that wisdom is a lot of false assumptions that are based on, assumed to be true, and they're not always true. So I know that's kind of weird. All right. Anyways, let's move on here to the next part of our little show here. A little show. Let's go to the awesome stack of stuff. The stack of stuff here, which is what is happening out there, things that are looking forward to the next kind of what's going on out there, I find to be very interesting and forthcoming, and kind of the shape of things to come. So the first one I put up on the stack is a blog article that was just a few days old, something that I saw in passing, but it was about the youngest 13-year-old young man in India that his dad was learning to be get his AWS certification. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. And so there's different certifications. And the young man basically sat next to his dad as the dad was watching his training videos, and he desired to go ahead and do that. And guess what? The kid went ahead and took the the course online, which many of and all the companies now do this for free. It used to be very expensive to do this kind of training. He basically became the youngest child to pass his AWS Solution Architect certification exam at 13 years old. And I think this is just very interesting at many levels. One of them is this concept that I don't think many of us are realizing the shift in education that is occurring, where so much of all knowledge, of all written stuff is now available online. So there used to be huge paywalls behind these certifications. And in my industry, certifications are a big deal. Certification is a big deal because it basically says it's like your law certificate or getting some sort of degree or something like that. Because the business changes so quickly, the certification exams that exist from the manufacturers, so like Amazon or Microsoft or Google, they all have certification kind of components to them, Salesforce. And once you take that class and you go through that, you're basically qualified at an entry level in that condition. These tests are hard, very, very hard. They use very modern. I'm telling you, believe me, I have some tests that I take 4 times before I pass them. They're very hard tests. They're not easy to pass. And so when you pass them, it's a pretty big deal. And so here, not only was a young person able to go through that entire thing, apply himself to it, and get certified, he did that online without having to go to a class. Like I said, we used to have to go to boot camps or have instructor-led teaching. These types of exams take weeks and weeks, 40 to 80 hours, contact hours with an instructor. And so you're able to do that online now. And the other part is I love the fact that he did this in India. Now, India is, of course, very progressive in terms of their ability and their education system. So it doesn't surprise me that this young man was able to do it. It just, from an American standpoint and from my, little corner of the world, the fact that anybody in the world can go and, and use those kind of resources online is actually really encouraging to me. I work so much with young kids in Africa, and their internet access is so bad that they don't have this opportunity. But here, this young man was able to have good internet service and able to take all these classes online and pass his certification exam. He's ready to be an entry-level AWS architect. That's pretty cool. I think that's awesome. That is awesome. Now, the 2 articles came up this week, one in ZDNet and another one in the Wall Street Journal. And it is all about managers and companies basically hating their IT departments and getting rid of the IT departments. And what we're seeing, I'm telling you, this is really, really interesting. Managers and a lot of companies are really losing confidence in their tech team. And that's what's happening is because IT has become so tied into the value of the business and the processes of the business itself and businesses itself, that the IT departments that are not looking at business value and what they are delivering and being tied into the strategic goals of the company and helping become a lever to advance the company's value and acquire and retain more customers or be more innovative, when they're just there basically to host and manage the IT infrastructure, they add very little value to that. More than half of the IT leaders surveyed said they were uncertain that their IT team could bring about positive change in the department in the next 5 years. Almost 1 in 5 are reporting significant doubts or no confidence whatsoever. And this is because, again, so much of the infrastructure now needed to support IT services internally it's actually a lot easier to do it than it used to be. Because the software that IT runs on, a lot of it doesn't need to be in the building anymore. And so a lot of the IT departments, it was all about the infrastructure of delivering applications to the desktop. And now applications are delivered to the desktop just through a web browser. And so you don't need to have a server sitting in the back room anymore to make your applications work. Most all business applications are moving and have been moving to the cloud. And so I don't need an IT infrastructure that's as sophisticated as it used to be to make that happen. And so now that business value of the IT department, making sure the applications are up and running, they don't have to do that much anymore. They just have to deliver internet and printing services to the desktop. They don't have to deliver other components, at least with the new company. And what's happening is a lot of new companies are able to outperform legacy companies because of this. They can lower their IT costs by literally not having that IT department much anymore. If you can run your complete application stack on the web, you don't need an IT department to manage it anymore. So it's crazy. I just need an internet browser. That's it. It's crazy what's happening on the tech side, and a lot of companies are really getting caught in the middle here. And you should basically take note from what's happening in the government right now. The United States government, the whole thing of this JEDI project, that is what is going on there. That is exactly what is happening there. That JEDI project is to take all of the on-premise managed applications that the Department of Defense would run in their own data centers and move them over to be managed by companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Google and Oracle in their data centers, and have the entire infrastructure then be able to be managed by somebody else. And the outsourcing that entire stack of applications. And this move has been going on for a long time. Some companies are if it's good enough for the FBI to be able to be in the cloud, and then your company, IT guy is saying, well, the cloud isn't secure, it always goes down. It's like, dude, if it's good enough for the Secret Service, it's probably good enough for us. Okay. So this is like the confrontation that's happening in companies where the IT departments do not want to give up that control, and they want to kind of still manage it and be a critical part. So as an IT professional, you need to start thinking of business value. What are we doing that relates to the business side? It's the same thing when I was just talking about how customers are so key to your company. That's the currency inside of the company. If you're a middle manager at a company and don't have a connection to customers, you're probably not doing a good job. It's the same thing if you're in IT and don't have an understanding of the value of your service and the products that you're putting internally. What is the value of printing services internally at your company? What is the value? How much does that cost? What is reduce the cost of this and that? If you don't understand how the business process works and how all those IT components work across the application stack, it's more than just hosting those applications. It's now providing strategic business value to the company. And if you're not having that kind of conversation, you may want to consider a different key amount of work. So it's really you need to focus on having good interpersonal skills and organizational diversity, and you want to identify the key challenges that you're having around things like the financial services that you're doing, having an IT workforce that's more diversified people. I mean, I've been in this business for a long time, and I can tell you that IT is the worst at this. And part of it, I mean, I'm not going to get into all the reasons before that, but the IT workforce has to be more diversified in race and gender, disability, all of the other marginalized groups. Everybody should be equally represented in your IT department. Organizations need to use different strategies to attract more women into that, and the increased focus on problem solving and some of the social challenges that the company is dealing with around culture. These are the things that you need to start to do. Now, once you start to see these applications show up, like Teams, for example, or Zoom, that's a new culture, man. And that's a whole new, instead of it being the cooler and the water cooler where the discussion is, now you're having the discussion in a totally different place. And so as an IT infrastructure organization, you need to move with the change. And it's one thing I talk about often is move with the cheese, right? That's the one thing that we need. And so, in the Wall Street Journal, their big article this last week was, IT is an island. IT is acting more like an island. And it's now the computer department. It used to be just called the computer department to keep everything, organized and make sure, all the files were secured. And it has to be, you have to deliver way more than that today. You need to have partnerships with the business leadership, and you need to be. This is where innovation can come in your organization. And if you're running a company, you need to start to look to your IT and start looking at innovation that can come from the IT group, and grow your business that way. Find new business opportunities in the way that you do your business. So. Anyways, so those are two really awesome ones. And the last one I will end on is from TechCrunch last week was Uber. And so Uber is kind of like the gadfly in business, right? They come up a lot in different business conversations all the time because they became a model of how to basically run a car company without owning any cars, right? How to run a ride hailing service without owning one vehicle, and basically be able to recreate that business all around the world. And Uberizing your company comes up in every kind of business conversation today. How do we Uberize this service, and how do we leverage the gig economy? All of this kind of stuff. Like, this is what happens. And so I've been, working on these different projects for years. This isn't something that's new. Uberizing a business has been a conversation that's gone on for 6 years or so at this point. Once they kind of proved their business model would work. I don't know if they turn a profit yet or not. I don't know if they're there yet. But anyways, so Uber, guess what they're doing in Belgium? Shutting the doors. They are they're going to shutter most of their services in Belgium after a court ruling. And so there was a court ruling that went not their way. And it really follows a lot of the suspension of the business service that they started in Brussels a couple of weeks ago. And it was really unprecedented for them, saying it's only taking a step to protest the lack of reform of the rules that prohibit drivers from using smartphones. And so, obviously, if you're an Uber driver in your car, you need to have a phone in there. And so one of the ways that the Belgium taxi cab companies have basically been able to eliminate Uber is, hey, we don't use phones. We have our little hack computer thing in there, and so we're not using our phone. And so they have, the taxi cab companies have their little dispatch computer in there that doesn't qualify as a smartphone. And so because it's not permanently installed, they're all exempt from that. But of course, Uber drivers all have their phones. They don't have permanently installed computers in their system. And so basically this law is just targeted to Uber. And this is the point that I want to make about this whole thing is that if you're considering and thinking about Uberizing your business, and when we talk about Uberizing the business, what are we really talking about? That is taking your product or service and figuring out how you can kind of outsource the delivery of that service to somebody else, and to kind of eliminate your infrastructure and focus more on your customers and how to get them and retain them. But the actual delivery of the service is done by a different company. And that is, that's a business model that Uber's done. And so if you're, let's say, a big retailer and you're saying, hey, we want to do appliances, we're going to sell appliances. And so you sell appliances, but you don't actually do the installation. You just want to sell them, and you contract out for the for the installation of the service. So you kind of put a bid board out there and you have kind of these approved contractors out there. That's Uberizing your business at a very basic level. You can take that all the way up to, branded installers, but even though they don't work for you, it's a cadre of a lot of different small businesses around the area that can do the services for you. Uberizing business has been around for actually a long time. This is how the trucking industry worked with independent contractors for years and years and years. So this actually was not a brand new concept. It just wasn't done in the taxi business until then. But nonetheless, what you find very quickly is that it is not a lot of folks want to focus on the technology that Uber uses and the way that the Uber system works around customers. And we have these apps, and it's an app driven kind of model. And that really is cool. And they have that ability to basically everybody gets paid and the system dispatches. And, it's basically an app based, user experience for everybody. And so that infrastructure is low, just like we were talking about previously. They're the ultimate IT infrastructure is all around business value and not about just hosting applications and delivering desktop experiences to users. It's a lot different than that. And so what is going on there is that the barrier to success is not the technology. This is my point today, is the barrier to success is not technology. It is legal. Typically it's legal issues and people issues. That's usually the barrier. And I've seen projects start and fail, not because of the technology. We've successfully deployed technology to do this, but it is not the technical side. It's the customer side. And the customers in Belgium, that competitive market that they're in, that market is saying, no, we don't want to have Uber here. So it's not a technical problem. It is a legal problem, and really legal problem, or environmental kind of issues around the customers themselves in those areas. I actually am in an area where I live is just outside of town. And so, if I try to call an Uber, I can never get an Uber. Nobody comes out here to my neighborhood. So I rarely get an Uber, if I need to go to the airport. It just doesn't happen. And so anyways, I just want to make that point is that companies looking to Uberize parts of their service need to consider the technology as the secondary component. And as part of their business, the biggest barrier that you're going to have to success is adoption. And if you can't get it adopted, if you can't legally operate in those frameworks, if you don't have the legal kind of understanding of one state to the next state's, let's say, labor laws. I'll give you an example. I worked for a company, a very large retailer that was looking to do home theater installations. And so they successfully piloted a Uber bid board system using our stuff, and it worked really well. And they picked one state to do it in, and one kind of municipality area in that city. And it worked really great. And the customers loved it. And because they were able to get things very quickly, that was the benefit of this was, with a flexible workforce, and it's kind of the market sets the price kind of model. Now all of a sudden I can find people to go do work in the middle of the day that I typically would have had to pre-hire people for and have them sitting around waiting for work. And now I can just base my I can get services done based on the demand of the time, and kind of do surge type pricing and different ways to get more folks when the services are needed. And so that's great. Plus I don't have to worry about doing installations, schedule something out next week. I can just get stuff done today. So the techs would just come and pick the stuff up. The guy would just meet the people at home, and stuff would get installed this afternoon. And it was great. And everybody was happy and everybody was loving it. And then they said, okay, this is great. This is just awesome. Now let's go do this in Arizona. All right. So then we go over to Arizona, and Arizona's laws around, nope, those aren't independent contractors. Those are employees. And, when they check the bid board at night, they're actually on the clock. So they're hourly employees because they're receiving more than half of their income from you. And so you're actually their employer. So they're not gig contractors. None of them are set up as LLCs. They're just 1099 people. So, you can't treat that. And so they ended up with, and so they weren't ready for that. And then when they went to other jurisdictions around the country, they had totally different labor laws all around the country and different ways to deploy things. And so you had, it was not a barrier. So the project failed. The project failed, and it had Zipola to do with the tech. The tech was great. It was all about the legal side and the people side. So if you're looking to Uberize, you got to address that as to me, in my mind, is one of the biggest challenges that you're going to have. This is why Uber, wherever they do work, they have usually an office. I remember here in the West Michigan area where Uber, a couple of years ago, there was this really unfortunate issue or incident that happened where a guy just snapped and went on a shooting rampage while he was driving his Uber around between rides, literally, and was shooting people and killed several people. None of his passengers. He didn't shoot his passengers. He would let them. This is just crazy. He would let them out, and then he would drive around the corner, shoot some people, and then go pick somebody another ride, and then drive those people around. And then he did this about 4 or 5 times down in the Kalamazoo area. The Uber people were there that night, they're flying people from around the country to come. They already had an office here in Michigan, several offices and several local employees. They're ready to deal with the legal issues that were going to happen. They were way ahead of the game, and to go, this had nothing to do with Uber, and we weren't, it's against our policies. They were making press statements and all of this, and they're already they're on the ball. That's all I'm saying. And so it's really interesting, I'd love to see Uber's, how many lawyers they have on staff, because I got to imagine a big part of their them setting up service in different countries is trying to deal with all those regulations. And that's good, bad, or otherwise. I've talked about being a little bit of a libertarian, so I kind of really frustrated with a lot of this kind of stuff about how you can't sometimes, just people aren't allowed to work like they like to or whatnot. But nonetheless, there you go. That's the challenge there on the good old hustle is the hack. If you're going to think about Uberizing, you got to think of the law. Gotta get that legal advice in there. Get that legal advice. All right. Well, guess what? It is the end of the podcast. I am spent. You hopefully you've had a great couple hours, and we've learned some stuff, and you acquired, identified, and retained some new information today. You've learned how to not be in that rhombus of failure, to do some good stuff. You learned a little bit about the pyramid of greatness and how to acquire, identify, and retain that most valuable asset that you have, which is customers. And, I said it here a little bit about, not being so worried, because you know what? You're a promise. You are doing a great job. I want to tell you, as your coach, I'm telling you, you're doing a great job because you're listening to this podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast, you're doing a good job. You're starting with that listener, that active listening, that growth mindset, and you're doing all the right work. And keep it on. Keep on going. Because, it's all about the hustle sometimes. It really is. It's just about getting out there and being consistent, showing up every day, being faithful, available, and teachable. And you'll get there. You'll get there. Promise. All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great week.